A Long Way Down is a new roguelite deck building RPG game from Synapses Studio and published by Goblin Studio that is available today on Steam through early access. Being a fan of the roguelite and deck building genres, I'm glad that I gave this game a shot. For me, it was one that is definitely worth my time to play and also enjoy. You start the game as Sam, a priest-like individual who finds himself in a precarious situation. He is dead. He is dead and sitting in limbo. The second character, Mabry, provides you with some backstory, which I don't want to get into just in case some of you decide that you want to get this after watching. Mabry, though, serves another purpose, becoming your guide through the tutorial and the game in general. The tutorial drops you in and explains to you some new mechanics that you may not be used to in a deck building game of this nature. In this game, instead of going along a linear path or randomly generated linear path, you are dropped down in a randomly generated dungeon that you then have to build to go through. Using tiles, you are able to build the world in any way you see fit. There are a finite amount though in your hand and can be replenished through navigating to these piles of slabs. While playing through a couple times, I will say I ran out of tiles with no way to get out of the dungeon, having to give up and lose all my collected items, so just be very conscious of that. Another aspect that caught me off guard was the addition of a dungeon master. After you use your 3 actions of either placing tiles or moving, the dungeon master then has a chance to place a tile and move enemies. He will use your own dungeon building tiles in your hand and place them in spots to waste the tile or to allow for enemies to reach you and try to ruin your run. This fun little addition creates a nice chess match within the game between you and the dungeon master. Sometimes you place tiles to avoid enemies, or you use a tile so that he can't use it to block you from a chest and its contents. In later dungeons, you have to be very mindful of what tiles you have left at the end of your turn due to the number of different tiles he will then have at his disposal to slow your progress or even sometimes to kill a run completely. During my playthrough, the AI for the dungeon master was fairly well. He did sometimes put tiles in strange places that did absolutely nothing, so maybe there is some balance needed, but for the most part, he was kind of a dick. Entering a dungeon, you are given a set of tasks that you can do, with one of them being the task you have to get done to move to the next level of the dungeon, but also some separate tasks to do at your leisure to get different rewards. Since the dungeon will change, I found it best to see what tiles I have to start, while also planning out the route I wanted to take through, mapping out chests I want to get, tasks I need to get, and a potential exit if needed. The movement and creation of the dungeon was one of my favorite aspects of this game, and one that I can't wait to see how they build upon. The more tiles and the more dungeons they add, the cooler that this whole mechanic becomes. But a typical dungeon, it goes like this. You drop in, look at the map, plan out what tasks you want to get. Since doing these tasks gets you rewards, it's always best to try to get as many as you can. You then move around the map, completing them, opening chests, getting tiles, and of course, fighting monsters. Fighting is similar to other deck building games you are used to. If you run into the creature on your movement, you go first. If they hit you on their movement, they go first. So it's always best to scroll over the enemy, see how many spaces that they can move, and staying just far enough away that they cannot hit you. Because them going first, a lot of the time, is bad. During the fight though, you get your cards, and you have 3 actions that you can cast unless a potion is used to give you extra. You kill the monster or monsters, get the rewards, and move on to the next thing you want to do. You could stop at a fire to get 50 health for your entire party, or go to the deck and card spaces on the map to upgrade your deck, cards, and equipment. Oh yeah, equipment. Equipment in this game provides you with buffs to your stats, but also cards that you get in your deck. So a weapon gives you a card that can be used as many times as the action points allow. All of these things can be upgraded and changed out to suit whatever deck you want to use. For me, it was important to find the gear that suited my deck that I was using, as some of the equipment I had didn't quite fit in. Like this betrayal card, which I still don't really know why I would use this. And that is the dungeon. In between every dungeon that you do have this zone where you can choose to play a dungeon that you have conquered already, or you can go into your inventory and change your deck, your equipment, You can upgrade cards, you can craft cards, or recycle items or cards to get this upgrade powder that you can use to then upgrade all of your items. Or you go to this base that moves you on to either the next level of the dungeon or to a new dungeon entirely. Now, I do want to say, after all that, I had a ton of fun playing this game, and it has a ton of potential. I went through and beat the content that is available twice, using different builds each time. I am very excited to see where the game goes, and in my eyes was worth every second that I put into it. But now that I've said that, I do want to give some negative aspects of this game that, in my opinion, should be looked at. The first thing I want to talk about is the dungeons and the way they are handled in the overall scope. In a game of this nature, I am used to going through, dying, re-strategizing, and going back into it from the start again. In this, if you die, you just lose everything and get put at the beginning of the dungeon you just died at. While it is great to get through all the content, it was a little disappointing as I died a few times, and it would have been a pleasure to start at the beginning and begin the mastering of not only my deck, but the dungeon itself. I'm hoping that it is something that is looked at again in the future, as that mechanic really adds longevity to a game of this genre, because right now in its current form, you can get through all of the content in about 4 hours. Next up is the audio. The audio. The music for this game was really good when I first heard it, and I thought to myself, oh, this is going to have a great soundtrack. Well, this song is looped constantly. And by constantly, I mean the entire time you're playing. Unless the audio just cuts out and you get this weird buzzing white noise sound. Now, this is a bug, and bugs are going to happen, but it was a little jarring going from some sound to absolutely none. When you enter a battle, you're greeted with this to get you pumped up. But then after the 200th time you hear it, you die a little inside. When I fire this game back up, I will more than likely be muting the audio for now and just listening to music, but I really hope that they add more tracks in the future just to give us some variety. If you pair this with the overall lack of more audio tracks for actions and fight scenes, and later Sam's voice being used as another character's voice when getting hit, then the audio is quite frustrating. This game also has a lack of cards for the deck and different builds you can do. Of course, I see this game being expanded on in that category, but as it sits now, it's a little underwhelming. Most of the better cards are base attacks with different things attached to them that give buffs or debuffs. Now, if I had more cards, it might allow me to build different decks, but you need to find the cards, and some of the rare ones are not easy to come by. Now, this can all change as I play through the dungeons again and accumulate more cards. We'll see if I'll be able to build a little bit more different decks, but as of right now, it's pretty base. It would have also been nice to see character-specific cards for the new character you get along the way. And this leads me to another point, the second character. Something that at face value looks like a really cool mechanic and one that could be improved upon, but fell flat in its current state. When I got the new character, Neffy, I was excited because she came along with all of her own perks. I thought, oh man, maybe I will have a second deck that I can build with her. But no. She shares all of the cards that Sam has, and since she had a buff for healing, that was pretty much all I used her for. Really, the only time I used her was to place a heal on one of my two characters. I think it would have been really neat to have separate decks that you can then synergize together, which would add a whole new dynamic, and I'm hoping some balance and more cards are added in the future. But for now, she is just a dedicated healer. Honestly, I think my main gripe with this game is just variety in general. While the bosses were cool, and they did have some really neat mechanics, and the art style was nice, the overall variety of cards, tiles, and enemies is just kind of lacking. With all of its negatives, though, I still recommend this game, even in its current state. It's different enough to catch your attention and has pretty cool new ideas that will pique your interest in it not only now, but hopefully throughout its entire early access period. This is one I will definitely be jumping back into, and I will also be following its journey throughout all of its updates. It was a great experience, and one I hope that you all will enjoy as well. Thanks for watching.